Welcome back to A Little Faith. This is a podcast sponsored by the Williamsburg Christadelphian Foundation. A Little Faith podcast explores both the challenges and hope of living a life of faith.
Welcome to the second group discussion about the pandemic and our faith, presented by WCF. Joining me today from nearly opposite sides of the globe are John and Rachel Launchbury in Portland, Oregon, USA, and Leona and Lucas Skippers in Kempton Park, South Africa. First, we're going to share a little bit how the pandemic is affecting us personally. Then we're going to take a look at how to understand certain Bible passages so that we can get the most help from them. And we'll be talking about what part prayer plays in all of this and how we might be able to help our neighbors. Finally, certainly not minimizing the tragic nature of the pandemic, we're going to explore how there might be a positive side for believers to what's going on. Just to start off, how is the pandemic affecting each of you personally?
We'll let John and Rachel start and we'll put in after that.
We were thinking we'd let you guys.
Okay.
But go on.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will start. So how it's affecting me personally, I am extremely grateful that God made me an introvert. And so I'm not wigging out about this at all. I love being on my own. I like my own company. It's suiting me perfectly. But of course, I have concerns for people who have lost their jobs. I have concerns for people who are ill or who are dying or who have died. So it has impacted my family, my extended family. A member of my family has died of COVID in England. And so that really did bring it home to me. That's, it's part of my family now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say that from our immediate family, we're remarkably untouched. We're staying just at the moment with our daughter and her husband, about to be grandparents for the first time. And we decided that when this thing was blossoming, that we would just quickly form a blended family so that we could be on hand to participate. But work, we're all working in jobs that continue the way they are. Ecclesially, we're doing Zoom like lots of other people, but we're also taking the opportunity to connect with people that we don't normally connect to because we're all getting used to electronic connection. And so we're taking opportunity to explore some other sort of meeting structures in other ways. So it's kind of got some exciting opportunities in the midst of all the confusion and complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, similarly here as well, going on your last point, John, it's also allowed us the opportunity to reach out to lost sheep in our meeting and those that are on the borderline. They're finding it less threatening to join a Zoom meeting than having to come back to church and face people physically again. So it's been great to actually catch up with just brothers and sisters that we haven't seen for a really long time. And how you became a blended family. We actually had two ends of the scale because our whole family was up here when the COVID lockdown was announced. And in South Africa, we were given 3 days to make a decision. And it was difficult decisions because Landy and Michael and our other two grandchildren were up here with us as well. So we could decide, could we all stay together as a family up here, or would they go down to Cape Town, 14 hours away? And if something happened, so we put it to a lot of prayer and a lot of faith. And in the end, they decided that they felt it would be better for them down in Cape Town, 14 hours away. And it has turned out to be a better decision, even though it was a really difficult, decision for us as a family. So you are faced with really challenging decisions to make because you realize they could have long-term repercussions.
Right.
Yeah, just to connect with what Rachel's saying, I think we have a lot in common because I'm also more of an introvert, whereas Leona is, the more outgoing one. So for me, it's like extra bonus time to do some things that I would like to do, say, on my own. The only thing I'm missing, and I think you are missing, is my spinning. I can't go to the gym and do my spinning.
I have some exciting news about my spinning because, yes, it's very important to me. And my spinning studio is a very small spinning studio.
Yeah, there we go.
And she has rented out bikes to people. So I'm renting my bike for my monthly dues because I was going to pay my monthly dues whether I could spin or not because I need her to be here when this is over. So I'm very much about, like, one of the questions, how do we support our community? Well, I was going to support her by paying my monthly due. And so she's rented our bikes and she does online spinning classes. So I still get to spin every day if I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, we live in a double, the property we have is a double property. So we made a bit of a track here. So I just go round and round and on my bike some days. We really... we really were focused on using this time and trying to get out of the lockdown, in an improved state, physically, health-wise, but also spiritual-wise, So, and it's amazing how inventive we've got over the few weeks that we are here. But the other thing that was, for us, affected our family, it was rewarding for me when we had to, in the beginning, discuss how we're going to handle this. Our people are going to go back to Cape Town or not, to see how we could all as a family sit down and really discuss these things openly with differences of opinion and value each other. And, although Llewellyn and Stacey stayed here, Michael and Lundy went back, and there's another brother in the ecclesia there that would have had to stay this time all by himself, which would have been terrible for him. And they've taken him in their home. So they also like a extended family, even there on their side. And with, us communicating, it's just wonderful to see how God has put us at the right places, in the end.
I think a key piece is that willingness to reinvent, and as you say, to do it with a compassion to one another and a willingness to listen carefully to one another.
Yeah.
Rachel, with you saying you enjoy the lockdown being an introvert, me being an extrovert and enjoying people, I've actually been very thankful for having a forced time of not having to be responsible physically to people. So I'm actually allowing myself internally to catch up, which I never grant myself that, because all our outreach work is always teaching and educating and being involved with the community kids. And now I cannot. That decision's been taken out of my hands. And it's been great to actually be blessed with a breather, to just... I can actually sit at home and not be responsible to anyone.
Right. That's important.
Yeah.
To take time for yourself, because, and I, like you, I give a lot of myself to other people. So even though I'm an introvert, a lot of people are surprised when I say I'm an introvert because I look like an extrovert, but it's exhausting. And so when I give and give and give, I need, like at the end of a Bible school, that Monday after Bible school, I need my house to myself in total and utter silence so I can regather. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's important to have time to reflect on what's important and, just, I guess really for me personally, it's giving me time to really take account of what really is important to me. And when this is all over, where do I want to spend my time and energy?
I think this whole conversation actually fits into a bigger principle about the whole COVID, that some people see it as this bad thing or whatever. And it's one of these life events that comes to us, and it happens to be coming to the whole world at the same time. And the issue is not, is the thing itself good or bad, but how do we react in the context of it? What the change that it brings, what opportunity do we take with that? How do we treat one another? When there's need, do we step out and do something?
Mm-hmm. So I've personally found that, to me, with our perspective, and Leon and I'm, somewhat fanatical when it comes to health, and prevention is better than cure and all those kind of things. So to me, the greater challenge in my faith was not so much will I get the virus or not. It's, all the other things in the world, the panic and, the media hype, and then the lockdown and the government, so how they approach it and what that impacts on your life is to me, much more of a challenge, I found.
Yeah, I find a lot of that stuff frustrating, and neither of us are on Facebook because we found that in fact, this was pre-COVID. We found we didn't like that sort of echo chamber panic spiral that goes on. But part of me wonders, is it maybe it's a duty to sort of participate a bit to reassure people, but I'm not at all sure that kind of setting is a good setting for trying to bring some calm and some perspective. So I don't know how to think about that.
Let me insert here that something that came up after the first discussion, that somebody wrote back to say that she found it very helpful. She said, I would love to see a similar chat with ideas on helping in our neighborhoods. And what I put down here as the question or discussion point is, but in light of social distancing and mandated shelter-in-place orders, is there anything we can do in our neighborhoods for our neighbors? Which, not directly preaching, but I think that reaching out in love is preaching. So
there's stuff that we can immediately do at the level of supporting local businesses. So we decided that we will increase the number of takeouts that we get from various restaurants and over tip, when we do that. And we're fortunate that we're in a position that we can do that kind of thing. And we have some construction going on at our house with some small crews. And we're, again, continuing to enable that to go on. Even though there's uncertainty for us ahead, it sort of feels more important to be willing to sort of share that opportunity with other people. So those are some that don't really increase the sort of connectivity, but I'm sure there's lots of others.
My son and I were talking about haircuts, of which I now need one. And then he said, well, I'm still paying my hair cutter. And I go, yeah, that's good. What a good idea. And the whole idea of ordering takeout or whatever, just to support businesses. Yep.
Yeah.
And one way, go ahead.
Sorry, Ray. Now, I was just going to say, in South Africa, it's a bit different. All our restaurants have shut down. So even instant meals, cooking hot meals from our shops as well. No social interactions allowed, only 2 people in a car. So basically the situation here is once a week, Lucas and Llewellyn or Henry will go out to buy meat and fresh fruits and vegetables. But one way we have found to still help people in the community is you can order things online and have it delivered to their homes, like non-perishable goods or essentials. So it takes me out of the picture, but it's still getting to their home to assist them. Physically, it's a bit of a challenge for us at the moment. They're very strict. We're not allowed out.
Also, because of the restrictions, what struck me is, when we do go out, you might have to fill your car now and then, or the person who comes to do the delivery. We've been saving all that money in fuel, so we just for this time a lot more liberal in our tipping, because in South Africa's situation, we understand that those people who are still doing that necessity work, they are the responsible ones, and if you bless them, then they have an extended family, and that will help a lot, to alleviate some of the hard times. So, there's lots of ways you can still be a good influence in a monetary way, but also just your general behavior with people and your civility, and your positivity, your optimism. I just wanted to add what John was saying. We had none of our families had the virus, except for Stacey, our daughter-in-law's mother in Scotland, Valerie. Sister Valerie, some people might know her.
She's a frontline nurse.
She's a frontline nurse, so she tested positive for it. But she was already like a week down the line. But we've been Zooming with them, and you can see the virus, it's a tough situation when you get it, but she's coping very well, and but it does make you aware of the reality of it.
Yeah.
But again, then we have to look at how much is there too much of a hype and fear created around all of this. It's a severe illness, but we all face severe illnesses from time to time, and it's just all the other factors with it that needs you to think a bit more faithfully about things, and really rely on your foundation of faith.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the what can we do in our neighborhoods. So I have an acquaintance, a friend who is extremely high risk. So she is her family are asking her not to leave her house, period. And so I had offered, I'd offered a couple of people who I know are high risk, like they're elderly or they have other medical conditions, that I would do grocery shopping for them. And she's taken me up on it. So, and she'll email me this, incredibly long grocery list. So, door to door, it's a 2-hour time commitment for me, but I would be reading my book otherwise. So I go and I do her grocery shopping. And when I deliver to her, she goes, you're a miracle. You're just a miracle. And she doesn't have a faith, but she knows I have faith. And so I don't have to say, I'm doing this in the name of Jesus Christ. I don't have to say anything because she knows that that's what I'm doing. And I think for me, I was telling somebody recently, I would like to live my life in such a way without being explicitly, everything is in the name of Jesus, that I just do it. Because for me, I would absolutely hate it if somebody discovered that I was Christian and was surprised. Mm-hmm. I want to live a life that they go, well, of course she is. Look how she lives. She's always kind. And I know my daughter's mother-in-law, I think she sort of respects that in me, that I put my faith in practice. She doesn't need to hear what I believe. She just needs to see what I believe. So I think that's what we can all do.
Yeah, yes. I had a thought recently that when people say they feel like, I can't preach, I'm not a preacher, what can I do? Seems to me, go volunteer to push a wheelchair around once a day at a hospital, because I know our hospitals take volunteers like that. And that to me is preaching. That's doing something good for other people. And you never know where the conversations are going to lead without being really overt about it. Like you said, sometimes they may take a spiritual turn or whatever, and you get a chance to talk about one's faith, and not in a pushy way. But anyway, it just seems to me simple things like that are preaching, because they're helping other people. And I think that's the center of the gospel anyway, is the Good Samaritan, go do likewise. So.
Yeah, we used to find that a lot of people that you help, they all say, God bless you. Mm-hmm. And we used to react to that saying, thank you, or yes, all praise to God because it's through him. But lately I've said to people, it's not that God will, thanks for, asking that God will bless me, but it's because he's already blessed me that I'm in a position to be his instrument of service, and therefore you can also get a blessing. And so your actions lead to a point where people will sometimes use phrases which gives you a opportunity to just share with them that, God is to be praised and it's all because of him. And then it's a much more natural way for people then to discover, your perspective is very positive and God gets the praise, instead of coming up front and saying, I'm doing this all for Jesus, sometimes we can be pretty awkward, make it awkward for people,
right,
in the way we are doing good, that it's so much on show and they think, it's
right,
we want to earn points or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jesus said, don't do your acts of mercy in front of people. Don't do it overtly in a way that they say, look at that kind of thing. Do it quietly. Your Father will still see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I've been working on myself for quite a few years, but this maybe for some people listening, this will resonate. Being raised a Christadelphian, I just was raised with this feeling that we are the people, and this is going to sound terrible, but growing up, I really was not good at making friends, I think, because I always had this hidden agenda that I had to, get them to tell me or be interested that there's no Trinity or whatever. just points of faith. And it was just so that a lot of times, this is what's going to sound terrible. I'd look at the people around me in the world and just say, who are these people? How do they fit in? Anyway, I was in New York City one time just looking at the sea of people in front of me in Times Square or something. And it just hit me that God has a relationship with each one of those people. Even if they don't believe in him, they're at least, I've got thinking about him every once in a while and whether they should or not. Anyway, the point is, goodness, who are these people? They're God's people. They are there. He's reaching out to each one of them. Anyway, it's just been a change in trying to change my thinking that I grew up with and just see people as being people to be loved. Anyway.
As children of God in their own rights.
Yeah, and that he's working with each one of them, each one of these millions, billions of people on the earth. It's inescapable to think about God.
And his love is already flowing to them. He loves them because they are his children. He longs that they will sort of wake up for those that haven't woken up. And many will have woken up and been connected with him in ways that we will. Like, you can imagine the disciples sometimes when they're talking to Jesus and saying, we told those people to stop doing stuff because they weren't in our group. Mm-hmm. And Jesus says, don't tell them to stop. Like, let them keep going. And I think we always have to acknowledge that the love of God and the reach of God is far larger and richer than we imagine in our small mind.
Yes.
I wonder if one of the ways we can reach out to the local community is, if each ecclesia has a website. So about a month ago, we had a young couple come to our ecclesia, and they had learned all about us on our website. And I was floored that anyone looks at our website. And so I've sort of taken it on. And now I'm realizing, this isn't, so in this world of irony where we've got social distancing, so we can't do face-to-face preaching in a time where everyone needs a message of hope. We could be putting this on our websites. We could be putting upbeat, positive messages on our websites in case people are looking at them. So that's a note to myself. I'm going to work on that.
Yeah.
Good thought.
Lucas, you look like you're about to say something.
No, but the irony is, what we found the irony is that you're connecting a lot more with people that you never connected to, because in the busyness of life, a lot of people get forgotten, or you just don't make it a priority. But now people's got more time and they are longing for connection because a lot of them are sitting at home, maybe alone, or, and a lot of people, after 2 weeks of not getting out and at least going to visit some people, you really want to do that. So Zoom or technology is good because they have the time and they're actually much more willing to reach out or connect with you, you can do that. And that's how we have focused now, especially on people that have become a bit isolated from the ecclesia or fallen away, or, we are meeting with technology with a lot of them now and bringing up conversations again, building relationships, which, you can always take a situation like this and make it a lot more to your advantage if you just think of ways of doing it. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm much more aware now of sometimes in WhatsApp that we have here, which is big, the status updates you can put on your WhatsApp, because there's quite a lot of people that look at that. And you can even use that to bring a positive mindset to people, So because everyone has got stuff coming around on, from the internet or from a WhatsApp, and if you just put in some salt there, it just might. And I've had people reacting and say thanks for the updates you give, or someone came and I didn't even knew they were paying attention, and then they will make a comment and you say, oh, it was helpful. So again, like with everything, we have to watch not our words so much anymore, but in addition to that, whatever content we are putting out there for people. Yeah. in the community at this time.
Can I take this in another direction? Throw something out here that it could be a challenging question. I've had a number of people cite Psalm 91, largely a lot of my Haitian friends, who, and I'll just read the part, but you're familiar with it. Surely God will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. So there you go, the plague being, I guess, the COVID-19 in terms of people's reaction. But should we expect that God and Jesus are going to protect believers in some special way, do you think? Or what should we make of Bible passages like this? Because really, I hear it a lot from people saying, don't worry, Brother Steve, we're praying for you, and here's Psalm 91. Psalm 118, I think it was something like that too. Any thoughts?
Well, my immediate thought is something I think a lot about is the idiom that God knows how many hairs are on our head. And he doesn't mean like literally he knows how many hairs are on my head. And, on an average, most of us lose, if we have any hair, we're losing 50 to 100 hairs a day. And so our hair is being replenished constantly. But the idiom really, and this is the time to do a Bible study, but it's a fascinating study if you look it up throughout Scripture. He knows how long my life. It's how long am I going to be here on this planet living in this body. And so once I really grasped that I don't know when my end day is going to be, but God knows my end day. And I submit my life to him, and I give him absolute control over everything, which, as a quick tangent, I think the fear of this pandemic is because we are now no longer in control. So once I give God the control, I don't fear. When I knew Zoe was pregnant, and I have like a little conversation with God in my head, like he knows my desires and he knows what I want, that I want to be a grandma. And so I was, hoping that I would still be alive to be a grandma, which could be today or tomorrow. So going back to this, I guess I don't live in fear, and I don't think too much about, how am I going to die? Well, is it a famine? I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm going to stop.
I have two passages that I go to in these kind of settings. One is Luke 21, the Olivet prophecy. And Jesus is warning them about terrible times that they will be facing. And in Luke 21 and verse 16, he says, you'll be betrayed even by parents, brothers, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. All people will hate you because of me, but not a hair of your head will perish. By standing firm, you'll gain life. And so he's saying, many of you are going to be killed, but don't worry, not a hair of your head will perish. And I think it's in that setting that I don't know what's going to happen to any of us. And so many of us may succumb to this disease or some other disease or other ways in which we might naturally die. And ultimately, prior to the return of Christ, it will happen to us all. But the promise of Christ is that through all of these, through all of the complexities of life, not a hair of your head will perish. That is, the Lord will be with you all the way through. And then another one that I love is Psalm 116, where I love the Lord, for he heard my voice, he heard my cry for mercy. And he says in verse 15 of Psalm 116, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. He's not necessarily going to stop us from dying, but that doesn't mean he's unfeeling about it. And his eyes are upon us and he cares about us.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We all pray for Christ to return. And then at the same time, we know the scriptures are very clear about that. Before Christ returns, there's going to be a time of tribulation. There's going to be a lot of suffering, persecution, just like you read now, John. So we should actually be prepared for this and ready mentally and spiritually to accept it in whichever way it's going to challenge us in our personal lives. I just found a great verse this morning in the readings, in the Proverbs 29 reading. in verse 25, with the contemporary English version, it says, fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. So we have people all around us trying to instill a fear and question life and question our health, and are we going to be challenged? But if I put my trust in God, as Rachel said, I have no reason I don't fear, because my life is totally in God's hands. And something with this track that Lucas has worked out for us, where we walk 200 steps every day. Every morning there are 2 sparrows sitting on a wall. How many steps did I say?
200. We walk 10,000 a day.
We walk 10,000 a day, but there's 200 in the track itself. So you know how many times we go around that track. But there's 2 sparrows sitting on the wall. And that aren't 2 sparrows, that verse in the Matthew where it talks about we are worth far more than the sparrows. So these little God moments are just great to pick up on in a time like this where people want you to question like the uncertainty of it all.
I just this whole issue is it's a bit of a complex one, because I feel it's not so black and white, straightforward. But if people use Psalm 91 to make the conclusion that none of true believers will get the virus, I think that's problematic, because it is interesting that Psalm 91 was what was used to tempt Jesus in the wilderness, and so the idea was, if God is your God, then, jump off a cliff and the angel will protect you. Mm-hmm. But in the context of that psalm, later down in the psalm, it's more like Jesus is, and he sets the Pharisees straight, saying, we believe in God and we do our part, and then it's up to God who still can decide, for us to get the virus. But we mustn't tempt God in the sense that we can be irresponsible and just go to places, ignore the rules, and be rebellious against the social distancing, and then we expect not to get the virus. So I believe there's a big element of responsibility first on our side, and being a true believer to trust in God, and then knowing that for sure, lots and lots of times we don't even know of. He protects us from dangers we don't even knew was around the corner or whatever. But in the end, it doesn't safeguard us or guarantee us never to get into a problem situation. And that could then again be a test from God. How do we deal with that?
Right. I love that you made there, Lucas, that this was one of the scriptures used to tempt Jesus. Like, you can do anything. And Jesus says, but don't put the Lord your God to the test. That's really nice.
Mm-hmm. So, I just believe that it does, put a responsibility on us to, and I think this is what crisis like this can help us a lot with, is to reflect on what are my values in life, what am I putting a great, premium on, where do I spend most of my time. And I think we are finding that a lot more people are at least looking at their spiritual lives more and their health, because, these things going to come again, and possibly more of these scenarios in the future. And the first thing you can do is live a godly life, even in the sense of how you treat your body and your health. And then for me, if I get the virus, I will know it's absolutely God's will. There's a reason for it, because I've done my very best, to the best of my knowledge and implementation, to make sure that I've got a strong immune system. But I'm still, the scriptures are full of examples of godly people who still had to suffer. I mean, Job's classic case. And to me, the problem with an approach of Psalm 91 guaranteeing true believers will not get the virus, what do we do with all the brothers and sisters we know did get the virus? Are we going to judge him and say, oh, well, now that shows you're not a true believer? It's a very dangerous path to follow.
It's exactly the error of Job's friends, where something had happened to Job and they say, you must have done something wrong, Job. And he says, but I didn't. I was doing all the right things. No, I mean, this is the punishment God brings on. And the whole of the book of Job is about the complexity of life that comes upon us. And how do we react to it? And in Job's case, what God's challenge to him is, in this complexity, Job, you started to turn around and challenge me. And that shows that there's still this element of pride within your heart. And let go of that. And then you'll be perfected, as it were. And I think it's true of a lot of us that, as Rachel says, we want to be in control. We want to be in control. And God has actually designed this world so that we cannot be in control. That's the message of Ecclesiastes. The race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong. Like, you may plan everything that you hope, but in fact, God has built this world in such a way that you have to recognize, I can't do it by myself. I can't rely on myself. I have to give my life over to the power that is higher than me.
And in some way, not to make our health the idol. So I'm, very, I'm very concerned about my health as well. So I eat well, I try to exercise, but we also can't make health my savior. Because despite what I do, if my days are numbered, then my days are numbered.
Yeah.
Leonie, you're going to say something?
Yeah, well, just going on, I love the Proverbs, because to me it's just like super practical. And just reinforcing what you were saying in Proverbs 16, it says, we make our own plans, but the Lord gives the right answer. So again, and in verse 9, we make our own plans, but the Lord determines our steps. So it's a case of, this virus has come around. I don't believe God sent it as a punishment to anyone. He has allowed it to happen, and he's now waiting to see our reaction to it. And as you say, like Job, we've got to be careful to not become too self-righteous in our own side and start protecting our own actions. We've got to, in everything we do, just give honor to God and say, okay, God, just help me through this next test. I really would like to do it to the glory of you and your name, and come out as a shining light, to those that are watching us with everything we do.
We're close to the end of our discussion, I think, but a lot of people are praying for protection right now. But what should our response be if prayers don't seem to be answered on any level for anything, I guess? If we just don't, we keep praying, but they don't seem to be answered. How do we react to that? How do we respond?
Go ahead, Lucas.
Well, when I thought about this, I've always had an approach to the three answers that your prayers can have. Is God can either say yes, or you can say definitely no, or it could be looks like a no, but it could be that it's maybe the answer will be yes later. It's wait. And I think the yes is easy. If we pray, we must remember to add as much detail in the giving thanks to God for exactly how He answered our prayers. But if it's no or possible wait situation, then very good idea for me always to go and try and figure out by prayer and studies and why would God have said no in such a case. I'm praying not to get the virus. If I do, then the answer. God decided that that was His will. But then try to be honest and really figure out why the answer was that way, so we can learn more about God. And again, the Book of Job is very helpful, because sometimes you also have to realize that the answers might not even be there. But, in the context of God maintaining this whole universe and our lives just being a speck, but we're also worth so much to Him, later the answers will be revealed. But to have that faith that in His wisdom, that was the right thing to happen.
I'm often struck by people who end up with bad diseases, who say that it's one of the best things that ever happened to them. Michael J. Fox is a great example with Parkinson's. And Parkinson's is a horrible disease. My dad died of Parkinson's. But Michael J. Fox says that in some sense, the best part of his life started at that point. And I think some of these very difficult things, they cause us to look at life as look at life afresh as a precious thing. And the danger is if we have been led to believe that none of these complexities of life will come to us, then we'll feel betrayed. But the scripture is really clear that life will happen to you. And the Lord is there, and being able to reach out and rely on the strength of God is the thing that will bring you through it, right through, even through the gates of death, to the other side. And I think that that's the message that we want to share with one another, that despite what happens to you, you can be at peace because the Lord is with you.
My prayer life has changed over the last 10 years. So, 10 years ago, I would pray absolutely fervently and would be weeping in prayer and giving God very clear direction on what I thought needed to happen, not so much in my life, but in somebody else's life that was in chaos. And it's taken me 10 years to realize that that this other person, everybody else outside of me, has their own God or their own higher power, or that, God is taking care of you how he sees fit. And so my prayer life now has become more of acceptance and thankfulness and trust. And so I'm very aware that, and I'm going to use cancer as an example. Like, we have a lot of times where in our ecclesia, we have a community prayer, and we pray a lot for people with cancer, and we want them to be healed. And I find myself thinking, but I don't know what the actual person with the cancer wants. I don't know what their relationship with God is. And in some ways, and this is something I think about now with my parents, both of John's parents have died and my mom had died. And so with my dad, that's between him and God. And so my prayer now is acceptance. Whatever happens to me, I can accept that it's happening, and I can trust that God is going to be taking care of me because I've seen him taking care of me in the past. So when people ask me, well, does God answer prayer? I'm like, well, it just depends what you're praying for. Because if I pray for acceptance, then God is going to give me opportunities in my life to practice acceptance. And I remember when my kids were little, and I remember saying to John, I'm praying for patience. I'm just praying for patience. And John's like, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and patience isn't going to come down like fairy dust. He gave you little kids so that you can learn patience. And I was like, oh. And so then I learned, okay, so if I want to go grocery shopping, I need to ask Nathan to put his shoes on 5 minutes before I want to leave the house, because it's not going to happen right when I ask him. And I think God does that for me anyway. I see him working in my life in a way that, and when I ask for something, and it's normally a characteristic, like I want to be more kind, I want to be more patient, he will give me an opportunity to practice that. So I find that in my life, God absolutely answers my prayers. I've just changed what I'm praying for.
Right. Want to say something?
Yeah, I totally agree with Rachel. Because with Steve's, when people say God doesn't answer my prayer, it comes down to the question that, what did you pray for? And was it the correct kind of prayer? And when it comes to illnesses and it comes to challenging situations, I know when our son was ill, you don't even know what to pray for after a while, because you are so aware of wanting God's will to be done, but and not wanting to go against his will. But your own will is you don't want your child to die, or you don't want the person to suffer. So literally that verse where it says, and I don't even know where it is, but it's, you don't know what this, the angels hear your silent prayers, and they make sense of what you actually are desiring. But it comes back to what we've been saying the whole time. We've got to realize whatever answers God gives us is the correct answer. And it's up to us to accept it and know that that's how God wants us. He's looking at how we're going to, everyone looks at how you're going to react to it. What decisions are you going to make? Are you going to fight against it? You're going to just become a passive person. and it comes back to faith, because a lot of your reactions are based on your faith and your relationship with God and Christ. And that's what I believe all the time we need to be working on in life, which is why it's so important to start the day with the scriptures. I personally believe most of us are praying all day long. It's not necessarily sitting down and closing your eyes and having a dedicated time to pray. It's showing gratitude, being thankful for small moments. I was just thinking the other day, we all always say, oh, I've got no time to do something. And now God said, well, okay, here's all the time you want. Lockdown, you're at home. Now, all those reasons, all those things you were asked to do, and you kept saying, oh, I've got no time, I'm sorry. Okay, here's all the time you want. What are you going to do with that time now? And are we using it like we said we would?
Absolutely.
I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you all for contributing to this conversation that we're hoping will be helpful to people, that will have helped give all of us profitable things to think about and reassurance in these trying times. They are trying times. So may God bless you and help you through whatever comes. Thanks.
Thank you.
all.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Bye.
Thank you.
Video of this discussion can also be viewed on our website. If there are issues or questions you'd like to see our Global Faith panel discuss, please email thoughts@wcfoundation.org. Thank you for listening.